So the Consumer Technology Association announced last week that the Consumer Electronics Show, its annual bacchanalia of the latest in tech and gadgets, is still on schedule to be an in-person event in 2021. This event usually happens in the first week of the year and fills up just about every convention and meeting space in Vegas, with companies seeking throngs of humanity to pitch their latest smart gadget, TV concept, or 3D printer. This announcement seemingly bucks the trend of 2020 of having all the events be virtual. And by trend, I mean the unavoidable fact due to a global pandemic. Even though January is a long way off, and the CTA says the event will have a significantly expanded digital presence, it's still kind of shocking today to see an organization plan for a large-scale physical event like that. So, in a year that's seen virtual events come into their own out of sheer necessity, why is the CTA trying to go old school? And I guess the bigger question, why aren't virtual events good enough? So as for CES, I think some of the insistence on trying to do in-person events comes down to it being a trade show. While the spectacle of keynotes and the latest gadgets certainly generate a lot of tech news cycles, the whole reason the show actually exists is for a lot of companies to do business. There are companies looking for distribution, partnerships, integrations. There's a reason there are legions of OEMs you've never heard of in your life lining the show floor. And it's not because they're trying to get featured on a tech blog. I mean, maybe some of them. They're trying to sell stuff to other companies in reality. That kind of old school horse trading is done in Vegas suites, and it's pretty important. That doesn't mean it couldn't happen virtually, just that there's more going on in person than some might actually realize at the event. It's just not a showcase. Alright, enough about CES. We'll see if that actually happens. But getting back to it, what is the appeal of physical events that someone like the CTA wants to rush back into having them? I mean, aside from pressure from the Vegas hospitality industry. Certainly, a sense of returning to normalcy is something everyone can relate to. The tug of going back to the way it was can seem almost irresistible at times. But let's set aside the completely justifiable pre-pandemic nostalgia. What are the actual benefits of physical events? Let's get specific. The first thing that comes up is the idea of being in extended physical proximity to like-minded people. It's kind of like choosing to live on a college campus. The idea is that you're surrounded by a group of people that are all kind of doing the same thing and going through the same stuff at the same time. And like those college students, event attendees also like hitting the bars together. It's this idea that physical events have so many side channels of communication that create residual value for attendees. In between presentations, meetings, and other formal event proceedings, the trips on transportation, shared meals, and other necessities of being together create networks that might not otherwise be there. So the shift to virtual events becomes a matter of what is lost. Indeed, the caveat virtual event is a qualifier to the whole proceeding, that it's somehow lesser than simply an event, which we all understand to be inherently held in physical space. But much of that qualification comes from virtual events traditionally being supplemental to in-person ones, not standing on their own. It's the consolation prize for the person whose company didn't deem them worthy to send. Yeah, sure, you don't get to fly out and get some free food and entertainment, but yeah, why don't you watch this keynote in front of a monitor for a few hours? Also, we still need you to work this whole time, let's be clear. In that light, it's easy to see why virtual events can come up short. But because virtual events are now forced to replace physical ones, not merely supplement them, the true advantages to them are starting to come through. For one, event planning doesn't need to be nearly as ponderous. I see the work that goes into creating physical events like Tech Field Day, and because you're putting people in physical space, it requires a ton of logistics. This isn't aided by the fact that many venues used for events simply don't have usable web front ends that make booking all that much slower. Planning almost any physical event is a matter of months, no matter what venue you use, both to make necessary plans, but also to allow attendees to set up simple things like travel. Virtual events have a supreme advantage here. Not only is the organization process a lot more streamlined, you're dealing with online platforms rather than calling individual venues, but you're also able to realize that event so much quicker. This is really a differentiator. This allows events to change from these static, save-the-date occasions that have to be a reflection of whatever is happening in the industry, not something specific, whereas a virtual event, you can fairly quickly respond to something that is actually happening. But the biggest thing to consider is how virtual events change who can not just attend, but participate in events. To attend a physical event, you need to be in a position to get work approval or take personal time off, and then not have any family or social obligations for a few days. This alone is supremely disqualifying to a lot of people. It's just a fact. Never mind the fact that 1 in 4 people who live in the US have disabilities, and while that doesn't disqualify them from travel, it does add additional stress. Now consider who can actually present at events. This has all the same caveats as just attending events, but then adds in the additional stress of giving presentations to a room full of strangers. Public speaking is the most common fear out there for a reason. It's a big mountain to climb. There are so many people that have valuable content to share, but that a live venue where you travel to speak to a group of strangers just isn't feasible. With virtual events, there's less of an imperative on live content. Pre-recording not only allows you to get rid of things like performance anxiety, but also raises the bar for what to expect from content in general. Also, let's face it, in IT, there are a lot of conferences that have a lot of faces that look like this, white dudes. IT companies like to talk about promoting diversity, and I think virtual events should be a key part of this initiative. They broaden who can see and speak at these and level the playing field in a very meaningful way. The good thing here is that we're still in early days for virtual events. Because we're going to have months of dogfooding these while replacing the entire physical event calendar, we'll undoubtedly come up with other ways to create additional networks in these virtual events. You're already starting to see interesting stuff with breakout rooms in Zoom serving this purpose. In the end, post-pandemic, I think we'll see physical events for the privilege they are and virtual events as a real opportunity going forward. Hey, thanks for checking out this episode of Checksum. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to the Gestalt IT YouTube channel to get this and lots of other content every week. And hey, let us know in the comments, what advantages of virtual events do you see? Can't wait to hear from you. See you next time.